Howdy, folks. It's me again. We're going to talk today about teams. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides with you. And teams are one of those subjects that you can make a lot of change in an organization with a little bit of effort on and focus on the teams. Whether you like doing work in teams or not, you're going to have to get used to this. We know that today in the United States, about 80% of all the work that's done is done, at least in some part, in teams. Long gone are the Mad Men era of business where we work in our own little cubicle or our own office, shut the door and get the work done. Most organizations understand that to get work done, the best work done and most efficiently and in a way that is most challenging, rewarding, and generally improves employee engagement is by doing it in teams. So we look at a lot of different things when we look at teams in order to maximize the chances that they will help in an organization. And we'll look primarily at the characteristics and the diversity of the team members. We'll look at the different types of teams, the interdependence that team members have, and then the composition of the team itself. And we'll end the lecture with looking at actually the size of the team. There's been a lot of research on this, and I think it's really interesting. So we'll share all this with you. All right, we'll start with the team characteristics, in terms of the characteristics, start with the types of the teams. So there are a lot of different types of teams. We'll look at the primary working teams and the 5 primary working teams. And when I'm saying teams, I'm talking about 2 or more people who are working together, not independently. Look at the word as interdependently. 2 or more people who work interdependently over some period of time to accomplish a common goal related to a task-oriented purpose. So can you see how a team might be different than a group? Right? You might go out to, well, before COVID, you might have gone out to eat with a group of friends, right? That does not make you a team just because you're going out to eat together, right? And what's different between the group of friends who are going out to eat together compared to a team of friends who are working on a project is that project, right? Is that that interdependence, is that task-related purpose. We're working on something, right? Not just going out to eat, right? Like I said, about 85% of all the work that's done today is actually done in teams in organizations, because there are a lot of benefits to getting that work done in teams rather than individually. All right. So those are those 5 primary types of teams that we see in organizations. Work teams are making something together, a good or a service. A management team might not be making something, but they're overseeing some either entire part or organization or some part of the organization, and it's across different functional units or parts of an organization. So by functional, I mean like maybe you might see the human resource department management team, or you might see sales, marketing, finance, accounting, and management teams often will oversee all of that, all the way up to the top of an executive management team. A parallel team runs in parallel to the normal task-related objectives of an organization, and is often created just for a specific period of time and for a specific purpose. You might see, for example, maybe there's a challenge that's come up at work, and so a team is formed to evaluate that challenge or come up with solutions. I just formed a team recently with a group of other professors and college administrators and industry professionals. And we started this team because we realized that we needed more work study opportunities for students at Miramar and SDSU. And so we said, well, let's do a team. Let's do a team and we'll evaluate this and figure out what we can do. A project team, that's typically a team that's working on producing one particular product or service. And, they might work together for a year or two, or however long it takes to do that one thing. And then the team dissolves. I always think about the team that I worked on for a little over 2.5 years at Ramona Airport when we were doing the runway extension project back when I was doing airport management. And we worked a lot together every day. And then when the project was done, the team was done. It dissolved, people went off, and it was over. And an action team, these are typically teams that are doing something really visible, really complex. They tend to be short in duration, the time that they're together. They're highly visible, challenging. By visible, we mean that customers, kind of see what they're doing. I always think of like the teams that come together for like a flight crew, right? Or a surgical team, something like this. Those are action teams. Now, I think you can see how a lot of these types of teams might overlap, and you don't necessarily have to be working on just one kind of team. They can very clearly be several types of teams at once. We are going to, I want to show you one other slide again before we move on, and that is the slides on, this shows the different types of teams, their purpose, the different activities, lifespan, involvement of the people, and then specific examples of these kinds of teams. So basically just what we covered. But before we end this particular video, I did want to say there are some variations within those different types of teams. And those variations have to do with how much control the different members have in a team. And some teams, you'll see the employees have a lot of control, a lot of autonomy. They're very, very self-managed, self-regulated, and they can even set prices, hire people, and bring on new team members, do whatever typical functions that used to be just reserved for management. Teams very often take those over. And there's not a best way to do this. It depends on the team. It depends on its purpose, its duration, et cetera, the organization. But I will say this about teams. Teams are typically reserved for people who are a little bit smarter in an organization. They're a good way for the organization to provide autonomy to the employees, to give them the discretion to do what they want, and you can give them a lot of responsibility if you put them in a team, because because then they hold each other accountable. There's not so much micromanagement that needs to be done when you put people into a team and you make them beholden upon one another. And as long as the employee is not a total slack, right? They're not going to want to let their team members down, and the team members will hold each other up, and we'll make sure that that person does a great job. So teams are a great way to give authority to your employees without having to without so much risk. Okay. Another variation that we see a lot right now is virtual teams, and virtual teams are just so necessary right now because of COVID. And but even before that, virtual teams are just a great way to bring in the necessary skill set without having to physically bring people into the organization or into the area. And last thing about teams is they'll often vary based on how long they've been in existence. Some teams are very short in duration, hours, minutes, and others are quite a bit longer. Yeah, so let me actually, I'm going to stop here. We'll finish this up in another video, and we will see you again very soon.